Pat yourself on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we will empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. What's up, OPP community? Today I am excited to announce an awesome guest who is coming on and sharing her story with us. She's a stay-at-home and homeschooling mom, martial arts mom. She's a rodeo queen who helps run her ranch with her husband, who is a rodeo king and world champion bull rider husband. And she also owns a photography business called In the Wild and Wonder, which you'll have to go check out some of her amazing photos. Please help me welcome Candace Lostroh. How you doing this morning, Candace?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. I'm excited to learn a little bit more about the rodeo queen life.
I love that. That was a great intro. Thank you.
Is it as glamorous as we make it out to be?
Really, no.
Yeah.
But I really wouldn't have it any other way, so it's good.
No, and that's honestly, that's one of the things that really drew me to you as a family at the gym. Is you guys live life on your terms, you know, and just watching the relationship you had with your two daughters and Cody and all the stuff you were juggling was always amazing to me. So we're blessed to be able to bring you on the show and share your story with our community.
Thank you. No, it's an awesome opportunity, so I appreciate it.
But just like at trials, Candace, I can't get you going heavy without a good warm-up, and I can't make you do jumping jacks and lunges right now. So we're going to warm up a little differently today. So I need to know, Candace, you get stranded on an island all by yourself, and you get one food. What do you take?
Oh, my goodness. That's a hard one, but probably my all-time favorite would have to be, I love avocados, but guacamole and chips would probably be like here.
Chips and guac, solid choice.
I could eat like that for every meal of the day. Even breakfast would be great.
Same.
Hey,
I love me some guac.
Yeah, chips and guac's not a bad one. I don't know if we could put you on an island next to the guest we had last week, Landon. He had steak and potatoes. You guys would have a whole meal set up.
Yeah, that's what Cody would say. That's what my husband would say is steak.
Oh, I
say that.
I wasn't sure if you were going to go steak and potatoes or not being on the ranch out there.
You know, I feel like I love steak, but like something that I'm like, I'd never get tired of is probably chips and guac.
There you go. That's what you got to take then.
So second warm-up question, Candace, if you could be any superhero, one that exists in the superhero realm like Wonder Woman, or create your own, right, like rodeo queen Candace, or with any superpower, who would you be and what would your superpower be?
Okay, so I love that question because me and my little girls talk about that actually a lot. And mine, I would love to be able to go into any like time, like go back in time and witness any moment of history and not necessarily change anything, but just be like a fly on the wall and just be able to watch it unfold. Because me and my little girls, we're huge. We love history. Like we watch History Channel. We love learning about history. And so we always talk about like what moment in history would we love to go back and just be a fly on the wall and watch. So if I had any superpower, that's what it would be. I don't necessarily want to go and change history, but I just want to go and witness it unfolding. It would be.
What moment would you go to right off the top of your head?
Oh gosh. In all honesty, I would love to go and watch Jesus walk when he started his ministry. Actually, I mean, I would love to go from the very beginning of his life and just watch how that unfolds and to see it like in real time and just how the people interacted him, even as seeing him as a little kid and who he was as a little kid. And I just think I would gain so much from that, especially raising kids and just seeing that unfold. And of course, like watching him die on the cross would probably be heart-wrenching, just knowing who he is and what he did for all mankind. But that would be those 33 years would be the best.
Well, that would be hard to top.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. What final warm-up question? What book are you currently reading, and what is your favorite book?
Okay. Well, I'm like a serial reader, so I usually am like reading 2 books and then listening to one on audio. So I'm reading a book called I Married Adventure, and it's a autobiography about Osa Johnson, and she was married to, I think his name is Martin Johnson, and they lived back in like the early 1900s, and he was a photographer that went to like tribes in the world that had never seen a white man before, and he took pictures of them and recorded them. Like they went to cannibal tribes, and so I'm about maybe a third of the way through that book, and it's so good, and it's through her vantage point as being his wife and what she encountered and how she had to be brave and how many times he wanted to like not go where he needed to go to like get these stories and to record these stories because he was afraid for her life. But as his wife, she was like, no, like I'm your partner. We're going to go and do this together. And so I relate to that story a lot. And so I'm reading that one. It's so good. So I definitely recommend that one. It's called I Married Adventure by Osa Johnson. And then I'm also reading a book called I set it down somewhere, but it's called In His Image, and it's about the 7 characteristics of God. And so learning about that. And then I am like almost all the way done with the audiobook called Stories That Stick. So it's like telling your story and relating to people and telling other people's stories really well and kind of the components of a good story. So, and my favorite book, I would have to say, oh gosh, I have so many favorite books. Gosh, Jerrod, that is a really hard one. You need to give me that one beforehand so I could think about it.
Oh, no, you can't just prepare for the warm up. You got to jump right in. Just like when you came to the match, you didn't know what we were going to do. You just trusted we were going to do something worthwhile.
I know. Well, on that one, I mean, I love, like, there's definitely some like historical fictional books that I love, but probably the one that had the greatest impact on me in the last few years is I think it's just called Bonhoeffer, but it's about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a pastor during Hitler's rise and reign, and he was ultimately murdered in a concentration camp. But just the stand that he took and his faith and how he actually stood up against, leaders in the church that were being pulled aside into Hitler's ideologies and stuff. And that one probably made the biggest impact on me. And I read it like at the end of 2019 going into 2020 and like seeing what was unfolding and seeing what was going on. I'm like, woo, this was a timely book. So that just first come to thought, that one had a big impact on me.
I'll be honest, I don't know how you do it. I have to read one book at a time or I get way too confused.
Yeah, that does happen. The biggest thing for me is they have to be separate from each other. None of them can be this like close to the same topic, because then I'll be like, well, I thought I read that in this book. I thought I read that in that book, and then I'll get confused. But if it's like a fiction or an autobiography over here, and then it's like a more of a, nonfiction learning one over here.
No, I can't do it. I got one book at a time. I'm a one book guy at a time.
I'm with you, Candace.
I don't know.
I'm with you on that. I usually do like a one on audio and then one physical. I'm curious, it sounds, as a serial reader, you probably increase your speed on Audible?
No, I don't. I have done that by accident a couple times, and I'm like, what is going on?
That's funny.
Dude, it's so funny.
So no, I haven't done that yet.
Last time I saw my mom, she was like, I love the podcast and, I support it, but I don't know what you and Ollie do, but you talk so fast nowadays. I can't understand you. And I was like, Mom, you sped us up. Give me your phone.
Oh, that's the best. It always catches me off guard when I do that on a podcast, and I'm like, man, they're talking fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, hopefully we're not so boring you have to speed us up, right? Like you get to just slow down and enjoy the pauses. It's funny, we were talking about off air, just people's speech patterns and how real good orators have that pause, right? Or they'll think before they answer. And I think a lot of times in our rush to speed stuff up, we miss a lot of communication that's not said, but it's transferred to you through nonverbals.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree.
That
pause to make sure you're not just BSing your way through an answer as well.
Right.
Because I'm totally guilty of that in the past. Just like pause and think about it and then answer is powerful.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Candace, welcome to the show. I'm excited to share your purposeful story with our community. So, off the top, how did you find your purpose in life, or how did your purpose find you? Because I think sometimes that's where we struggle, right? We go in this search of what we think is our purpose or our life, but for most of us, life happens somewhere else and it becomes our purpose. So kind of talk to us about that.
Well, to think back where I really started to maybe wrestle with like what my purpose is, what I wanted to do in my life, what I felt like I was being led to do, really goes back to like when I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, I competed in rodeo, which is a very individual sport. It's not a team sport. And then I was also a dancer, which a lot of times turned into more of an individual thing than a team as well. And of course, all those things I wanted to be the best in them. And I ended up going on a college rodeo scholarship. And I mean, this is what I'm going to do. But always in the back of my mind when I was a little kid, I was just, man, I just want to be a mom. And like, I remember I never was like the one that had like a lot of baby dolls or anything, but like, I just loved thinking about like how I would live life with my kids and my husband and everything like that. And that was always just like that dream out there. And so I got married. Cody and I, we were been together since we were 16. We got married at 20. So we've been married for 15 years now. And so when we had our girls, it really was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like it was finally that moment of like, man, like I am meant to be their mom. And I know that so many times people are like, well, you only have them under your house for 18 years, or you only get to be that person in their life till 18 years. But Jerrod, you can attest to that it doesn't end there.
No, for sure.
I just know that when I became a mom, I was like, okay, now I feel like I really can instill what God put in me into these little humans, and not to make carbon copies of myself or anything, but just to encourage and grow those up in the unique way that they were created. And I absolutely love that. And I didn't ever set out to be like, we're going to homeschool. Like it was not ever from the very beginning of when they were born that I was going to homeschool. And I grew up around homeschool children a lot. And I was always like, those are the strangest people I've ever met.
Yeah, it definitely had a stigma.
They do. And, some of them do. And what I've really come to learn is that if the parents are antisocial and that way, then the kids are that way. But if the parents are social and involved in the community and involved in other things than just being a homeschool family, then the kids are pretty normal.
Yeah, and I love it. And if you're not following Candace on Instagram, you got to get over there, because some of my favorite posts any day are when I see Dessa's outfits for the day. Because Odessa lives her life on her terms. It don't matter. But like some days she's dressed as a dinosaur in cowboy boots walking around with her goats and stuff. And I just love that. So how do you, one of the things you wrote as we prepared for this that really resonated with me is you want your girls to be brave in a world that values safety. Mm-hmm. So what what are you doing to teach that? How do you get that across to the next generation?
I mean, really, I truly believe that where we live on a ranch and we have horses and we have cattle and we have dogs and everything that they're surrounded by could be very unsafe. So, I mean, riding a horse, like you hear all of the nightmare stories of kids falling off or kids getting hurt and stuff like that. And it does happen. But the feeling you get and the freedom you get when you are being able to just go and ride this creature that trusts you, that you trust, that lets you, I mean, you can go and rope a cow off of a horse. You can go hunt off of a horse. You can fly. I mean, literally, like that's the closest we get to flying, I really believe, on this earth is when you're running a horse wide open in a field. And that feeling and that ability to be able to go and do that should always override the fear and the safety of what could happen, you know? I just really feel like the little kids that grow up around that kind of stuff, they have a great respect for what safety is. And I'm not saying go and play out in a busy street or anything like that. Like, I'm not going to let my kids ever do that. I'm not going to let my kids go and do something super unsafe with their animals. But man, like, there could be something really bad that happens if that kid is going and riding that horse. But more than often than not, there's amazing things that happen when they get to go and do something like that. And so I've taught them, like, your fear is God-given, like that ability to be like, this doesn't feel right, I'm not going to do this. But don't let it override I don't know, just like that magical moment that you get to go and do something really amazing that most people don't get to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Long ways around the mountain.
No, and the other thing I love of what you're teaching your girls is that bond when something else is bigger than you, right? Like when you want to sleep in, but you know you can't because that horse can't eat unless you get up and go feed him. Or the goat, right? Like, and I think if we had more of that in our world, if more kids grew up not thinking the world revolves around them, but actually sacrificing for something else, I think there's so many valuable life lessons that take place on a ranch that you don't get a lot of other places in society. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. There is, I help take care of the horses just because those are my babies. They were my babies before I had babies. But the chickens and the goats and the rabbit that we have, I'm like, girls, those are yours because, all honesty, I can live without them.
Yeah.
So if you want them in your life, they're going to be your sole responsibility. If you need help sometime, of course, or if they're at grandma's house, I'm going to take care of them for them. But that is their sole responsibility. And if I notice that those animals didn't get fed during the day, like I talk to the girls, hey, like, did you remember to do this? I give them that one warning, but if they don't go and take care of them, we're looking at, hey, you know what? Tomorrow's sale day at the sale barn. Like, I'll load them up. We'll get them out of here.
Yeah.
So natural consequences of, like, you don't take care of them, I'm going to give them to somebody else that's going to take care of them. So that's just the way I feel about it. Maybe that's not the nicest mom, but that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think, and honestly, I can tell you, your guys' kids and Emily's, every time you came in the gym, there's just a different energy with kids that have the responsibility that you're teaching your kids versus those that come in that are on their technology that don't know how to look you in the eye or shake your hand. You know, I mean, and in all fairness, of all the things I miss from trials, being gone now for almost 6 months, I guess 5 months, messing with your kids when they enter the gym is one of my favorite things, like scaring them and just goofing around because they were like little adults, you know. They came and talked to you. And probably one of the hardest things is when I told Sheridan I was leaving. Of all the students there, man, she was the one that got to me.
Yes, and she was not happy.
Yeah.
I remember her holding it together, and then we get in the truck, and she goes, Mom, Jerrod is leaving. And she just starts bawling. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I can attest to that just a little bit because I would always come in for my training right after the kids class. And I never really got to interact on a deeper level with you guys, but very briefly saying hello and every now and then just kind of fist bumping your kids. But I'm really keen on energy as well. And I just felt like this very good, responsible energy from you, your husband, your kids, and knew that you guys had a connection with Jerrod. So I could see some of that passion from you of just being a mother and how it resonated through your children. So kudos to that. I think what you're doing and the way that you're raising them is truly what our world needs more of. And I'm curious, Candace, to rewind just a little bit back about your purpose, because I was reading through some of your info in our guest questionnaire, and you talked about how you've always had these huge dreams, right? As a young girl, you wanted to be the best in rodeo, you wanted to start your own business, and you had these dreams, but at some point you realized that more than anything, you wanted to be a mom. And Jerrod and I were talking a little bit off air, and I was telling him, I was like, you know what? If I was a woman, I feel that would probably be something that I'd be like, I have to be a mom at some point, right? Like I have the ability to create and birth a human being, right? So, but it's surprising to me when I do talk to young women, like I had an employee of mine who shared with me that she has no interest in being a mother, and that surprised me sometimes. So I'm curious for you, Candace, with all of these big dreams that you had as a young woman, was there a moment, an experience, or like what exactly was it where it just clicked for you of like, you know what, more than anything, I want to be a mom?
Um, you know, probably the biggest thing for me is that me and my husband and the way that we live our lives, I feel like the life that we've created around us, that having these children that get to experience what we have and what God blessed us with is really, it's just a treasure that I'm like, man, I want to share this with these little beings. And I want, not that our whole world revolves around them, but I want to create this, not that it has to be perfect, but just like this childhood that's magical, that it's, my Instagram handle is In the Wild and Wonder. And the reason that I came up with that is that our life can be wild and it can be chaotic and it's not exactly perfect, but finding like the wonder through all of that. And that's what I really feel that motherhood can be too. So many times, and we were talking about the funny mom memes before we got on air here, but I feel like especially right now, so many times moms are like, like I can't wait until 5 o'clock and I'll grab a glass of wine and I'll unwind and I'll make my husband take care of the kids and all of that stuff, which I'm not saying that I've never been there and I don't have that mindset. Some days there are some days that are just like that. But I think that moms almost focus too much on the hard times with kids, which like I said, I've definitely had those, but I really want to find the wonder in the middle of the chaos and that I get to do this, because instead of that I have to do this, like I get to do this and I get to instill like my values into these little beings that are so curious and they're like little sponges and they want to learn and they want to grow, but then they've also got their own personalities. And I take being a mom so serious. It's one of the biggest things that I study in God's word, and I read books on it. Obviously, we've talked about that, and I listen to podcasts on it. Like I really feel like I'm a student of how to raise up these little humans. And one of my favorite parts in the Bible that I've read is in Proverbs 31. And everybody talks about the Proverbs 31. She's this, she's that, she's this. But what I love is the little bit at the very beginning of Proverbs 31. And it's King Solomon talking about his mother and what she instilled in him and what she told him and how it stuck with him. And history shows that King Solomon was the wisest king, the richest king that ever lived. And I'm just like, man, like his mama did good. And it's so many times that people that change the world, a lot of times they had this mother that loved them and instilled these values in them. And I'm like, if I want to change the world, I really believe that it'll be through these two little girls that I'm raising, and I'll have a bigger impact and a bigger legacy because I've instilled in them, because that's generation after generation. Because you guys could probably attest, you probably had a grandmother that prayed for you. And Ali, I remember you talking about your grandmother just in the post in the last year, and like such an impact that she had on you. And I mean, those mothers have such a huge impact on, and I'm not saying fathers don't too, because they have definitely,
Yeah.
but it's just like a different relationship. And I think that it's the way that we can nurture and love and change the world through love, really.
Yeah.
And it's really a mom really does lay down her life for her kids when she brings them into this world. I'm not saying that I lose myself, but when I carried these babies for 9 months and I had to go through delivery, and then, you know, you are at the mercy of your kids when they're really little.
Yeah.
And Cody and I always talked about that we didn't want to have kids until we were less selfish. I was like, we didn't have kids until we were 6 years into marriage, because we're like, we're still selfish. Like that's who it's about us. And I don't want to bring kids into this until I'm ready to be like, okay, you know what? No, now we're going to do this. So that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, I love that. And as part of your parenting, I've noticed that you really let your kids suffer consequences, right? When they, you know, well, right before I left, we had that little period of time where Sheridan couldn't do jujitsu, and, you know, because of one of her actions. And preparing for this, reading through, you said that learning to be humble has been one of the greatest gifts for you. So can you share with us how becoming humble in yourself is a benefit to those around you, and how did you get to that point in life where you had to work on that?
Yeah, this is actually a cool conversation I had with a friend the other night, because she was talking about she is really getting her life on track, and she's like, the hardest thing that I have with my past and the mistakes that I've made in my past is that right now, where I'm trying to go and what I'm trying to do, people call me a hypocrite because I'm trying to live this way now, but they knew who I was back then. And they call me a hypocrite for the path that I'm on. And she was just like, I want to call it being human, which I'm like, yeah, like totally agree. And I told her, I was like, this is what God showed me about being a hypocrite and being a human, is that the thing that makes you be able to relate to people and for people to accept you going past who you used to be and becoming who you want to be and following God and going where He's taking you is humility. So if you can say, yeah, this is who I was, this is what I used to do, this is where I'm at, and I'm not perfect, and I'm going to mess up, and I'm going to sin, and I'm going to screw up this walk, but I'm going to walk it in humility. And as a human, that's what we have to do. And one of the most powerful things that I remember somebody telling me when my little girls were little, and they're like, don't ever wear out or don't ever be above saying sorry to your kids and telling them like, hey, I messed up and I'm really sorry. And do you forgive me? And when you get down, I've done this so many times. And sometimes I'm like, it almost that pride rises up and I'm like, no, like I don't want to do that, because they're going to think that they can just get after mom, like, mom, you're doing this, you need to apologize to this, which they've actually never done that. But getting down on their level and grabbing their little faces and telling them like, I am so sorry. Like, mom, she messed up at this time and I want to apologize to you, and do you forgive me? And just like it makes me cry even thinking about it. Like, they're so sweet and they're so accepting. And I think if more parents did that, man, we'd be in a lot different world.
Yeah, that's awesome, Candace. And I'm curious to know, because it seems like you you have some contrast, which is so holistic, right? Some contrast in some of the goals and objectives that you have with your children of like humility, but also bravery, right? So I'm curious to know, as a mother, how do you encourage your kids? And I'm honestly curious to know for myself, because sometimes, as you know, as a business owner and a fighter, it's like you have to have this confidence and belief in yourself, and sometimes it can be hard to balance that with like, okay, how do I stay confident and believe in myself, but also be humble and have humility? So I want to ask you, with your children, how do you balance that and show them to be brave and confident, as well as walking life with humility?
Yeah. Well, this has been eye-opening to me, because when I was a kid, I was so competitive, and my brother was as well. And I mean, I remember just hating losing and being a bad sport, and throwing a fit or anything like that, or blaming the horse I was riding, or blaming my parents, or blaming somebody. And having that realization finally, like, I don't know, I can't remember what got a hold of me when I was a kid, but I just remember being like, it is easier to take ownership over you and to fix what you need to work on for yourself than try to control these other things that you don't ultimately have control over, right? And so something that I've been teaching my girls is to trust the process, and to trust that all these people that you look up to that are maybe the best in what they're doing, they started somewhere, and the way that they learned the most was losing, or by making mistakes, and that you learn more by making mistakes or by losing than you do ever winning or doing everything perfectly. And then just, I've told them this, and I've taught them this, is that perfection is a myth. Like, it's not humanly possible to be perfect. Like, we have a perfect savior and a perfect God, but we are not going to be perfect, and everything that we do isn't going to be perfect. And so that's been something that I've been kind of teaching them. But yeah, trusting the process, that you're going to fall down, you're going to have to get back up, and you're going to fall down again, and you're going to fall down again, and you're going to get back up. But just teaching them how to trust that process, and learning it myself still.
Yeah.
Been a journey.
And I think that's important, is sharing your imperfections with them, right? And that's one of the things that, then again, in a world that has a lot of falsehood and filters, we sometimes shy away from our imperfections. And what I love to tell people is your imperfection is actually your strength.
Yeah.
Because in being imperfect, you've learned lessons, you've created toughness, you've shown perseverance. And I love that you're teaching that not only to your girls, but to the ladies at the church, because I know you lead some of the ladies groups. And I remember one of the first, when we were first becoming friends, and you were preparing for one of your first times to speak at the church. And I remember how nervous you said you were and stuff. And now I look at you and I'm like, you would never know you were nervous back then.
Oh yeah. No, I still get nervous.
Yeah, but you shared it. You know what I mean? And I think that's something great for our community to take on, is we all have doubts, we all have nerves, we all have imperfections, and you don't have to hide from those.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the human bond is strengthened when I share those. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, our friendship probably would have never been as good as it was if you hadn't been like, hey, you do a lot of speaking. Like, what do you think on this? Right? Because I remember the first few times, like, we actually talked about what you were going to say and some different, like, we shared that. And what if you'd have just pretended like, oh, I have it all together and I don't need anything here? Like, our friendship would have never been as good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. And I think when we get to that point as humans and in a community, that I don't have to be perfect to be valued. I don't have to be perfect to be worthy.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
We release some of the heaviness that we carry around, right? It's like taking those bricks out of your backpack and now you can run free. Mm-hmm. And all it takes is a shift of a mindset to realize my imperfections are actually my strengths, not a deterrent. They're not a baggage, an anchor, if you will.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think humility is one of the greatest things that a person can possess, just to actually make an impact on the world and be a leader and to touch other people's lives, is just being like, yeah, like I have struggled with this, and then I'm still maybe struggling with this, and I will struggle with this too. Like I really feel like that's something that everyone should possess.
And I think
They
it's one of
don't
the
have it all together.
Yep, and I think that's one of the greatest gifts as a parent that you can share, or a leader of humans, is
Yeah.
quit striving to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Strive to make progress and be better than you were the day before.
Yep. I agree.
Because perfection is always elusive. But now here's something I find interesting. You are in a sport that is completely subjective, right? Like I could watch you barrel race as a novice, think that was the most perfect run ever. But you might come back and the one judge didn't like something with your hands or something on the turn, and you get a score that's less than a 10 or whatever the ranking system is there. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, well, there's for like bull riding.
they got the
rodeo,
timer.
Yeah, but for barrel racing, it's just the timer. So no, nothing.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, so you're just beating the clock there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think like so for that example, like if I'm slow on the start or I'm slow on the stop, or
Yeah.
like I can't control that if I'm on the horse.
Yeah.
But all I can control is just being as good as I can be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what humility teaches you, is to enjoy moments.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? Like when I'm humbled, like I appreciate having this hour with you. I'm not trying to be perfect to make to the next hour and make sure this hour leads to, right? Like you just enjoy things a little more. And I think if we could slow ourselves down and teach our kids and teach our communities to stop for a minute and appreciate the people around you. And what are they bringing to your life right now?
Yeah.
Right? Like every encounter brings something to your life. I'm excited for you guys. By the time yours airs, Landon's episode will have been next week. But Landon Wilkie, we just had him on. He's a curator for a museum.
Oh, wow.
As a third grader, he was drawing warplanes and studying history. And Ollie and I, like, dude, we were out like fist fighting in the playground, and doing like our paths would never have crossed if we didn't stop for when they did cross to appreciate what does he bring to my life and what can I bring to his. And that's what I see in your girls, Candace, is I see them, like they bring to other people's lives. And that's kudos to you guys. And I think it's part of this, right? You realizing that you don't need to be perfect to be the best mom you can be, to be the best leader in your community you can be.
Yeah.
Candace, I'm curious about how a lot of what you're saying, which I'm really loving, right? The bravery, humility, a lot of these concepts that I believe we need more of right now, more than ever. I'm curious how do you bring these to your business as a business owner in photography? Because I feel like today we have social media, right? You have Instagram, and we capture these moments. And I think sometimes there's so much around like capturing this perfect moment. We have these filters and we have all this around like the perfect picture and the perfect photograph. So I'm curious to know, how do you encompass humility and not the need of perfectionism and not being perfect? How do you encompass this in your photography business in the Wild and Wonder?
That's a good question. Probably my most favorite photos that I've ever taken happen when the people in front of my camera are not posing, or they're not even paying attention that I'm taking photos. So many times when they are getting their kids out of their car or they're walking to where we're going to go take pictures, I am like shooting that whole time, and they might not even know it. They may be walking away from me, and the little boy is on his dad's carrying him, and the little boy's looking back at me. Like, those are some of my most favorite photos because it's not curated, it's not perfect. And I love some of my most favorite photos that I've ever taken of my girls is it's cold outside and we're going out to gather horses out of the pasture and bring them in. And I'll have my camera on me and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe we just got these photos out here. And this was totally impromptu moment. And so I really feel like capturing the moments, and even people think that, they see Instagram and they're like, gosh, their whole life is just all of like, people tell me about what I share on Instagram, and I'm like, man, I want to make sure I'm sharing the real too, because not everything is beautiful, whimsical, or anything like that. But finding like the joy and like the mediocre as well, and just the times during the day where there's not a lot going on, or it doesn't look like the highlight reel on an Instagram post or anything like that. But I love capturing just the realness, and something that I've been toying with, and I've been trying to figure out like, how do I make this happen, is like telling the story of the people in front of me, whether it's a little girl and her horse, or it's a family, or a couple that's celebrating their 40th anniversary. I love capturing that story. And there's a story when you capture the little details up until when they're just walking together, talking to each other. So just capturing those real moments where people are not posing is my favorite. But of course, as a photographer, you got to catch the other things too. So I just keep photographing from the very beginning to the end.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome of catching things in the moment. I have a quick follow-up question too. We talked about bravery and how you want your children to be brave in a world that values safety. But I also saw that you want them to know what really loving your neighbor means. So what does really loving your neighbor mean to you, especially in a time right now to where we're not really supposed to be hanging out with our neighbors at this time. So what does that mean to you?
The biggest thing that I've really learned about loving your neighbor is that more than anything, don't stoop to the level that the world is stooping to what they say is love, and teaching them like the truth of God's word. Like, that's in our family, like that's our standard, is that God's word is our standard of what truth is. When a world says, own your own truth, whatever's true to you, go after that, which is like that word we were using earlier, subjective. The world's definition of love is all over the place. It's a goalpost that keeps getting moved all over the place in the name of acceptance or inclusiveness. It's very subjective. But what true love is truly laying yourself down for your neighbor or for your friend. And walking in that is, man, I love you, but this is like a very silly thing, but like if somebody's got something in their teeth and you're sitting there talking to them and you're like, I am so distracted by the spinach that's in her tooth. Like, I'm going to say that it's like, hey, girl, you got something in your teeth. And it's the same with somebody that is maybe going down a dangerous path and you love this person and you say, hey, like, I'm seeing this. You might want to pay attention to that. And so it's not always looking like what the world defines it as. Man, you need to be inclusive. You need to make sure that you're accepting of every single thing and every single person, which, yes, I love every single person, whether I agree with their lifestyle or not, but also saying like, this is a dangerous path you're on, and I love you enough to tell you that this isn't the best for you and what I believe for you. And the biggest thing is too, is like, I just teach my girls that, yes, what we're seeing in the world is not like, that's not of God. That's not of love. That's not of goodness. But those people that are committing maybe that, or doing those things, or saying those things, those are still people that were created in God's image, and they are worthy of love, and they are worthy of value. And we don't throw them to the wayside just because we don't agree with the way that they're living. And we talk a lot about, I'm just going to be that mom. My kids know what communism is, and they know what the regime in China is doing to the Uyghur people. We talk about these things. We talk about people in Africa that are in the sex trafficking slave trade. We just went to a fundraiser last night where they talked about it. My little girls, I want them to know the darkness and the evil in this world, so then they can see the light and the goodness that is also in this world, and that the light can drive out darkness, that love can drive out hate. because the only reason that the dark gets darker and the hate gets stronger is because that light gets dimmer, because you can't turn on darkness more, right? You can only dim that light. You can only take that light away, and you can only take your love away. Because that hate, what hate is and what darkness is it's a world without God. It's a world without love and without his light. And so that's teaching them those differences and letting them know that, yes, there are bad people and evilness in this world, but we've been given power to overcome the world. That's what Jesus gave to us.
I love it. And honestly, over history, the only thing that's ever conquered hate is love.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But love doesn't mean that I can't be honest with you.
Yeah.
Right? Love doesn't mean, matter of fact, it's the opposite. Right? If I truly love Ali and he doesn't show up when he's supposed to show up, he doesn't do the things he's supposed to do, I don't show my love by saying, well, that's just Ali and it's okay because I love him. No, I show my love by saying, hey, Ali, what the hell's going on over there? What are you doing, dude? Like, what, you know, right? Because I care. And I think you're absolutely right. We've got this confusion that love means I just stand back and whatever happens, happens. And I'm like, that's not love. Because if you truly loved me and you saw me making mistakes and you saw me doing things that are detrimental to my family's well-being, if you truly loved me, you would pull me aside and say, dude, get your head out of your butt. What are you doing right now? Why are you doing this to yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. And I think teaching awareness of darkness is one of the best ways to teach the value of the light, right? If we just teach kids to ignore all the bad stuff and we hide them, we shelter them from all this bad stuff, well, that's kind of why we're in the position we're in now, because then they become adults and they're, whoa, I never saw bad stuff as a kid. I thought the world was this way, and that's how I want it, so I'm going to act like this. And the reality is bad stuff happens every day all around us. But it doesn't give us an excuse not to be the best we can be and to love and to care for one another. And I think that's a fantastic point you made. Like, you were teaching them to be aware of the darkness, but they're not going to dim their light, and they're going to go live life seeking adventure and seeking fulfillment.
Yeah.
And that's one of the greatest gifts we can actually give our kids, right? Is not to run from obstacles, not to hide from evil, but to acknowledge it and choose differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And the light, there is no light without the darkness. So the darkness is necessary for there to be light. That contrast is necessary.
Yeah.
Well, it's human nature, right? It's always going to be there. No matter how hard we try, we're not going to create a perfect world. And it goes back to talking about perfection before. So one of the best ways to accept imperfection is to realize it.
Yeah.
And as much good as there is, there's going to be a little bit of evil, but I still fully believe that there is far more good in the world than evil. But sometimes the good sits quietly, thinking somebody else is going to deal with this evil.
Yeah.
Instead of all of us saying, no, I'm going to deal with it in my little world. I'm going to be the light in my world.
Yeah.
I see Cody's walking around over there.
Yeah.
We haven't had a world champion bull rider on the podcast yet.
I know.
Get him on here too. Speaking of Cody real quick, I did see that he shared something about a Ryan Bingham fundraiser for Rodeo People concert.
Yes. Cody. Like, I could grab him because he knows more about it.
That's a virtual fundraiser, right?
A virtual fundraiser. The Western Sports Foundation is it's set up for anybody within like the Western sports. So rodeo, anybody that competes in like any kind of horse sports or anything like that, but mainly rodeo. So when a cowboy or cowgirl gets injured in rodeo, they don't have like a sports contract like in the NFL, like, but they still get paid when they're hurt. And so the Western Sports Foundation was set up to help them with those expenses. And then, but it's been transformed so amazingly by the people behind it, that they have therapists that are dealing with the traumatic brain injuries that a lot of these people sustain in it. They're helping them with financial planning and But more than anything, it's really to help those guys and those families out when one of them gets hurt and they're not able to keep doing what they have been doing to make money to sustain their family. And so they're doing an online, I think it's this Wednesday on the 13th, and it'll be a concert that will benefit the Western Sports Foundation. And Cody's actually, they have a state-of-the-art facility down in Pueblo, Colorado, that it has an Olympic-sized swimming pool. It has a great weightlifting room, and Cody's gone down there and done a lot of the fitness training for the guys, and he set it up kind of as like he took little book notes from the Navy SEALs, like their Hell Week and stuff like that. Like they do drone proofing, they do a lot of just stuff just to keep them, just to teach them to be mental tough. So it's a really cool.
All right, for our community, we'll swipe that and get that on social media and share that as well.
Yeah, that'll be a great thing coming up on Wednesday.
So if you had to leave a couple tidbits for our community, what would you share them if maybe they're struggling to step into their purpose? What would you tell them to do?
More than anything, I feel like our world is so quick to say, do whatever makes you happy. Do whatever makes you happy and makes you feel good. And what I've learned through in my walk is when I step out of my comfort zone and when I do things that are difficult, that are not like fun all the time and comfy, I grow and I learn more, and there's a resilience that's bred inside of me when I can step out of that comfort zone. So if you're worried about being happy all the time, I think you're missing what your true purpose is, because I don't think God put us on this earth just to be happy all the time. I think he put us on this earth to do hard things and to, like we were talking about, to be that light in the darkness. There might come a time where you really have to make a stand for what you believe in. And I really feel like getting it settled inside of you now, instead of when that time comes, when that persecution comes, when whatever is really at your face to face, is knowing like, this is what I believe in and this is what I'm going to stand on and this is what I'm going to go after. And even if it's not safe, even if it's not comfortable. And so I really feel like stepping out of your comfort zone is like that first step that you can take. So if you have something on your heart that you want to do, whether it's going and volunteering, feeding the homeless, or going and talking to this person that God's just put on your heart that you're like, man, I just don't feel like I want to do that. It doesn't sound fun to do that. I think that that's something that we should just already start practicing in our lives now.
I love it.
Really step forward and find out what your true purpose is.
Yeah, and Candace, if anyone wants to keep up with your journey, learn a little bit more about what you and your kids have going on, your family has going on, the ranch has going on, where's the best place for them to follow your journey?
I share most everything on Instagram, so at In the Wild and Wonder. And I do have a website. It's getting revamped right now, but I plan to share more on there, blogging and just having that as my home place, because as we all know, social media is very crazy and could be very tumultuous at times, as we just witnessed this last week. So I want to make sure I've got that landing place there that we can still communicate with each other and keep up with what we have going on here, but also just to help people if they need anything, any prayer or anything like that. I'd love to communicate with them. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Candace. It was an honor to be able to share your story, and we appreciate all you're doing to be the light in the world.
You're welcome, and thank you for the opportunity. This was such a blessing.
And remember, team, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. We will see you all again next week.